Devo said it best, whip it and whip it good. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is everything Focus Group. All our media is there, including our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned. And you'll learn about our partners and sponsors there. One of them is Deep Discount, partner of ours here on the Focus Group. And I want to remind listeners that in September, we have Criterion Month, which means we're going to be giving away movies after we play a game called Pick That Flick, which is where you guess the name of a film based on an audio clue, usually about 10 or 12 seconds. You guys are all great at it, usually, and we usually give away, and we have a lot of discs to give away, so stay tuned in September for the Criterion Month. So welcome to the end of August. Can't believe the summer's almost over. I saw a neighbor of ours who is a principal at a charter school, and I said, are you getting ready to go back? And she's like, no, we're back already. So some kids actually started school this week, right?
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I know in college we used to start in mid-August, I guess. But I was trying to think in high school. I thought it was always. I used to think it was right after Labor Day, but I don't think it was. It was probably right before, maybe. I don't know, beginning of September.
You know, Tim, I can't remember, and I seem to think we had Labor Day, and then it was the boom dropped, and it was back to school.
Of course, we had snow days too, so that was a whole different thing. But I applaud you on your opening. That's the opening I would have probably have done as well. So
well, you gave it to me because if followers of the show, we have a pretty clear, simple format. We kick off with a little discussion, then we go to something called Caught My Eye, and it's Tim and I bring interesting little articles that caught each other's eyes to the table. We never really know what we each bring. We've only overlapped once or twice. I think that happened when we were on Sirius XM Satellite Radio. Then we do a business birthday after a quick break, and we have two shop talks today. And one is about a famous brand of iced tea, and the other is about a behavior that people are exhibiting, and they've exhibited it for a while, but it seems to have gotten worse after Miss Pandemic came to town. So, so yeah,
you're gonna use that as a drag name, aren't you? Pam-demic?
Pam-demic, yeah. I guess we're saying that now because we're not, when we were during the whole thing, if you said it, anything related to it, your videos would get dinged, or Tim would get these notes all the time, like, how dare you say this or that. Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, the former guy was able to say whatever he wanted, and everything went sailing right through. But if we mentioned COVID or the pandemic, we got taken off by taking advantage of a national crisis.
An emergency, yeah. We're taking advantage. Not like that bunch that sold the Doomsday buckets. Remember you did a Caught Your Eye?
Oh, yeah.
About those disgusting, what was it? It was like a Doomsday bucket,
yeah,
right?
They're still for sale, by the way. Get ready now for the next insurrection. You can still buy buckets. You get 30 gallons of oatmeal or slop, whatever, and they're hoarding these things in these old root cellars, because the government's coming for your guns, and the IRS is going to be all armed with semi-automatic weapons to storm into small businesses. Our friend Carl said to me, "Just so you know, I've never shot a gun. He's a commissioner, so he's top level. Never shot one, don't have one, don't need one, don't use one."
That was the only Republican talking point they could come up with the Inflation Reduction Act, was that we were going to increase, and I'm sure what Carl might have also...
increase audits.
Yeah, and what Carl might have also told you is that it's going to happen over 10 years, and it's to actually stem the flow of people retiring. I think there's going to be like 50,000 people retiring from the IRS over the next 10 years. So we're going to have a net gain. Yeah, am I right?
Yeah, it's backfilling agents. He actually, in his retirement, there were two other people across the country that got together and did a retirement. But yeah, no, it's to backfill all the retirees that are retiring, to backfill agents. And
people complain about
and that's the whole thing I get frustrated about with our news people, is that they allow people to go on and spout that nonsense and don't challenge them. And maybe you're not supposed to challenge them. Maybe you're just supposed to let them come on and talk. But if you and I interviewed somebody like that, we'd challenge them and say, "No, that's not true. That's not what's happening here." Let's be honest about it. And
I thought the
nobody
whole thing
seems,
with journalism was you were supposed to ask questions.
nobody seems to want to. Chuck Todd's the worst. We might as well go on. And tell him a bunch of things because he just lets it go. He rarely challenges anything. He needs to get. I don't watch Meet the Press anymore. I don't know. Do you watch that?
We do.
I've stopped.
I think that I may prefer Martha
CBS.
Brennan's show,
Yeah,
the CBS show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she sometimes pushes back on these
Yep.
oddball narratives, right?
Yeah, and so does Stephanopoulos. I think Stephanopoulos is a better panel at the end as well. But I used to love the Sunday shows. Of course, they seem to have now, with the way the news cycle is, it's old news before it's on. So it's so I don't
Well,
watch it.
I remember when Tim Russert was the host of Meet the Press.
Yeah.
And he was fair, and actually a lot of people commented on him after he stepped down that they went on the show, they knew they would get a fair hearing, but it was going to be hard. He was going to ask tough questions. And he would sometimes have people of opposite parties on, and they were actually capable of having a discussion because they had a policy difference or they thought philosophically maybe the government shouldn't be doing something. Now it's just all anger and hand-wringing and who's the most crazy, right?
Yeah, that's nice. You said Russert stepped down. He died.
Well,
You're so nice. After the gentleman stepped down.
I do remember it was kind of tragic. Yeah. And his son used to work for, didn't his son do reporting for a while too?
Yeah, and then his son went and did some sports thing with Carvel, and then I don't know what the son's doing now. You're right about that. And he kind of disappeared. He and that other guy that used to be on in the morning with Thomas Roberts. He had the last name of like a famous department store in Manhattan. But anyway, he used to be on all the time, and then he seemed to disappear as well. He was Mika and Joe's assistant.
Yes,
God,
Steven.
I forget his name. No, it was something like Bloomingdale or Bloomberg or
Yeah.
I forget his name.
He was with them for a while, and they sort of elevated him to some.
And then he disappeared. Well, he got in trouble doing the Cinco de Mayo with Robert Thomas. They had sombreros on, and they were doing shots.
Oh,
They all
that's
seemed to
right.
have then disappeared after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Shuffled off the stage in an egregious act of cultural appropriation on Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. Which is, in fact, a holiday where you would have tequila and you might want to wear a sombrero. I don't know that that's bad. I don't wear one myself, but I do celebrate Cinco de Mayo, right?
Well, again, this goes to the whole thing of this cultural appropriation. When people talk about we can't dress up like pilgrims or Indians for Thanksgiving. We got in trouble on one of our shows for we made some comment years ago about it. And how we did as kids, you would do in school plays. There were the cowboys there were the Indians and the pilgrims. You would do these Thanksgiving plays or whatever, which you're not allowed to do anymore. But they still allow you to wear a sombrero, which is just as bad, I would suppose.
Yes,
right?
and yes.
If you want to play that game, but you're not allowed. I don't know. I think it's difficult to try to figure out a Halloween costume now.
Bob and I were watching a documentary about Queen Elizabeth, and it had a lot of historic footage. And there was footage from the 60s and 70s of parades. And there was a parade, and there was a float going by, and it said something like the United States of America. And they had on the float pilgrims and Indians. And the Indians were waving the tomahawks, and, and Bob, we were watching the float go by in a documentary video, and Bob goes, boy, that would never happen today. That would just never happen, right?
Well, I saw an old Dennis the Menace with that. They all had headdresses on, and they're doing an Indian thing. Mr. Wilson was going to light a fire, burnt down the department store, essentially. But, you're not allowed to do any of that anymore. So, I don't know. I think some ways we've gone overboard, but I guess the pendulum, as Mr. Earl just told us, you have to go all the way to the one end before it comes back and settles in the middle.
Tim's referring to a history teacher we had in high school named Emil Elgis, and he's right. But that was one of his favorites. You had to go from one extreme all the way to the other before you could ever even dream of getting back to the middle, right?
Yeah, and we're in that we're in the extremes on both ends right now. So where they kind of even out again until some moderate person like a Bill Clinton who came along at the time and out of nowhere and somewhat put the country in some sort of moderate balance, and hopefully there'll be somebody else that will come forward and
I was a Bill Clinton fan, but I wasn't a fan of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah, but that wasn't his fault.
No, I know, but it happened on his watch, and it was all because he had to appease a bunch of people that didn't believe gays should be in the military, right?
But my argument about that was it was better than the policy of you're going to get kicked out.
Yeah, well, marginally
So
better.
it was
Okay.
more because he knew he couldn't get it. He could not get it passed in the Senate or the House.
No, that's
So
true.
the compromise was okay. Well, then you're not going to ask somebody's sexuality, and they're not going to tell, so they could serve. And
Yeah.
so I think people forget that really was a step forward. As much as it wasn't what everybody wanted, it was certainly a step forward.
Mm-hmm. Good
So,
point.
Yeah, yeah, that's
All right. But
All right.
outside of that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
That was the play.
All right. Without further ado, sir, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, I hope, John, you have your license with you if you go into the store to buy some whipped cream, because New York State had passed last November, but they're now starting to heavily enforce this now that we're getting into what they're calling pumpkin pie season, or I guess dessert season, where people use whipped cream. But you have to be 21 years or older and show proof of ID if you want to buy whipped cream now in New York State. And so it's joining the long line of course, if you have to buy liquor, you should have to show your ID as well. You'll probably still get a gun with that one, but you can't buy whipped cream.
Guns are safe, though, Tim.
Guns are safe. You can buy guns. So this has been enacted because the abuse that's happened, they said, by kids huffing or doing something that we all knew growing up, Whippets, which is a nitrous oxide, which is in these canisters of particularly whipped cream to help get the cream out quicker and push it out through the nozzle. But they claim this is one of the top 10 most abused drugs. And so in order for you to buy this now, you have to show ID and be over 21 because they're afraid too many kids are doing this and they're harming themselves. So the first offense for selling a whipped cream canister to somebody under 21 is $250. And then the fine goes up to $500 for any subsequent violation. And so if you do a Whippet, apparently it makes you lightheaded, gives you a euphoric feeling, but it also deprives your brain of oxygen and makes you disoriented. Dentist offices will use it sometimes. They call it laughing gas. But
Sounds like a Trump rally.
yeah.
Deprives your brain of oxygen, the whole bit, right?
Right. So I went and I looked to see what the other 10 most commonly abused drugs were in the U.S. Do you have any idea what they were?
Well, that's a most commonly abused,
Yeah.
right?
So these are the 10 most commonly abused drugs in the U.S. This would be a Tim's list.
Could
But-
it be is Dayquil or NyQuil on there?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, it is. That would be number 7.
And I
So
guess we can't say anything about like Claritin or something, or I'm sorry, Sudafed, because you have to get that from the pharmacist now, because you could use that to make other
Yeah,
things,
that would fall under what they're calling.
Okay, so Sudafed, yeah.
RX stimulants, I guess. But so the list, number 1, of course, is obvious alcohol. They're calling that a drug.
Okay.
Number 2, marijuana. And actually, marijuana just surpassed tobacco. I don't know if you saw that as being smoked. More people smoke marijuana than tobacco now in the U.S. for the first time ever since they've tracked. Pain relievers are number 3. Hallucinogens are number 4. Depressants, number 5. Cocaine, number 6. RX stimulants, 7. Inhalants, which is where this nitrous oxide and the Whippets come from, number 8. Meth, crystal meth, number 9. And heroin, 10. So those are the most commonly abused drugs in the U.S. So they are classifying alcohol as a drug.
Wow. So I just want to know how enforcement's going to work with this, right?
Well, that's what they said. So there's a senator, a state senator in New York, Joseph Adababo.
Yeah.
I'll be saying it wrong, but he's in the 15th district, and he said that they've seen more incidents of these younger people that are inhaling this gas to get high, and they believe the kids believe it's safe because it's coming in, these canisters of whipped cream, for instance. But they want to let people know that they aren't safe, in fact, and so they've decided, I guess the New York State Legislature has enacted this law last November that essentially says you must be 21 to buy a can of whipped cream, and you have to show ID. And if anybody's caught selling to somebody underage, the fines are $250 and then $500 subsequently above. So I don't know how you check it, right? If you pull into the convenience store and you send your kid in to go get a canister
Well,
of whipped cream.
there's the problem. You can't. You have to go in yourself. I love the
Yeah.
picture you found, by the way. Couldn't it be more artfully staged? It's an old linoleum floor with some kind of like little carpet, like a rag carpet, and then
Yeah.
the cans are like two are down, one's being consumed, and it's such a funny picture. Where'd you find that?
The Google.
Yeah.
It's probably copyrighted. We're not allowed to use it. But what I thought is, I mean, if you had done this, you probably would have had maybe a little white cream or something on that black shirt. Don't you think you would have?
Yes, there would have definitely been some whipped cream escapage. Yeah.
So that's what caught my eye this week. How about you?
Oh my God. Well, mine is different. It's interesting. And I just think these people come up with fun ways of looking at data or researching. And basically, it's this. The headline is this: dog owners appear to take more risks while cat owners are more cautious. And it says new research examines how people conform to their pets' stereotypical traits. So a scientist worked with a couple of people around the world to look at a behavior that he had, in fact, had observed in his own pets, his dog and his cat. And it turns out the dog was always excited to go outside, never hesitated when people came to the door, very friendly, very outgoing, while the cat was a little more suspicious, kept a comfortable distance from people. And he thought to himself, I wonder if these dispositions are just inherent to them, or do we pick them up ourselves? So he did a bunch of research over the past several months, in fact, not years, and he worked with a couple of grad students in different parts of the world, and they just set up different experiments. I'll just give you a couple, like 3,000-foot view ones. Our first pair of studies looked at a pet ownership data in U.S. states and compared that with several crude measures of risk-taking. For example, they found that people in states with a higher share of dog owners, and that would be a state like North Dakota, had a greater prevalence of COVID-19 infections in 2020 than states with more cat owners, such as Vermont, which had an extremely low infection rate. Although we controlled for political orientation and other variables, our results show only a correlation. The reason dog ownership seems associated with more COVID-19 cases, for example, could be that dog owners take more risks, or they simply have to take their pets out for walks more often, which means greater exposure. So that was like tip of the iceberg, like, well, there's a correlation here. In another study, we wanted to get individual level data, so we used an online survey tool to recruit 145 owners of either cat or dog. So you can't have both, you had to have one or the other. We gave participants an imaginary $2,000 stipend or like savings account, and we asked them to invest any portion of it in either a risky stock fund, or a more conservative mutual fund. Dog owners, who made up 53% of participants, were significantly more likely to invest in stocks and also put more money at risk than cat owners. So again, another unusual data point that seems to say that if you own a dog, you take risks. For example, we asked 225 people to view 4 print ads featuring either a cat or a dog, and then decide how to allocate a $2,000 investment as in the previous study. We found that exposure to dogs led participants to be more likely to invest more money in stocks. So even if you didn't own pets, if you were shown pictures of cats and dogs and you were given a fake amount of money, if you were exposed to dogs, you wanted to make that investment. And the last little research point here is another study recruited 283 undergrads and asked them to recall a past experience involving a dog or cat. They then randomly read an ad for a massage business that either emphasized how massages increase metabolism, boost immunity, and rejuvenate the body, messages psychologists have found appeal to people seeking rewards, or how they soothe body aches, relieve tension, and reduce stress, phrases that would tend to work better on cautious people. We told them that the company was offering $50 gift cards to several participants based on how much they were willing to bid. Students who recalled an interaction with a dog offered bids significantly higher when they were exposed to the reward-oriented rather than risk-aversion ads. In contrast, those who recalled a cat offered much higher bids when they saw ads focused on risk aversion. So he said at the end, he goes, why it matters, pets, especially dogs and cats, are prevalent and play important roles in the lives of tens of millions of people. In the U.S., 70% of households own at least one pet, and 50% say they own at least one dog, while 40% have a cat. And he theorizes that because pets are such a part of our companionship network, and that we treat them like family members and friends, it's only natural that our furry friends exert an influence on us, just like our other family members do. So I don't know if there's any. I was just, this is why it caught my eye. I'm like, okay, so Tim, you're a dog owner. You've always been a dog owner, but I don't necessarily associate you with risk.
Yeah, I looked at, well, and I wonder if they did something. There's a lot of families that have cats and dogs. Right?
Yeah.
So I wonder,
balance them out.
I wonder how that is. I would say your personality, though I would say with your personality, see, I looked at it as if a dog, if you open the door and let your dog and cat out,
Yeah.
the dog will run out, enjoy, maybe run up to somebody, want to say hello, want to be social. Cat will gingerly maybe put the paw down, let me see what's going on, take a look around, see what's up, maybe go off to the side and investigate what's happening. I think your behavior is more dog-like then. You would be happy to be out and be social and be going around. But I think in some other things, making big decisions, you are probably more cautious.
Yeah.
So I think you're kind of a hybrid. Maybe you're non-binary, John. But so that's how I looked at it. Dogs are far more carefree than cats. Cats can be a lot more crafty sometimes and assess the situation a little more fully, I think, than a dog. And I think maybe we both are like that. I guess we could be risky in certain things, but generally you try to assess what's what and then make a decision. I think that's more cat-like. But
I just think something like this is kind of one of those. I would never have dreamed of doing a research project where you would assign risk aversion or risk to whether you had a cat or a dog. It would never cross my mind. But we observe people and their pets, how they interact. So there is something there, I suppose.
we had a big discussion over the weekend with one of the neighbors here, Joyce, and some other folks about dogs and about how they know. For instance, when I lived in Philadelphia, Trixie would know 5 minutes before I was coming home, before anybody else. She'd go to the door and wait.
Yep.
And Joyce, my neighbor across the street, they had 3 dogs and 3 kids, and each of the dogs had kind of one kid had the dog. She said same sort of thing. They all would come home at different times from the school bus because they were different ages. She said, but each dog knew when the other was coming. Like each dog knew when the kid was coming. And she said over the years she was fascinated. She never could figure out how the dogs would know 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. And of course you can't ask them. And then
No.
And then Richard said to me, do you think Spike thinks about Trixie? Trixie died, right? So do you think the dogs remember a past pet? I said, I don't know if they would remember. They remember people, but I don't know if a dog can have that thought to say, oh, I remember fun times or something. I don't know. I don't know how you would ever study that.
We asked the vet about that when my cat had to be put to sleep.
Right.
I asked because we had Stella, the second cat, and we asked the vet, and the vet said she will spend some time looking for him, and then that will slowly kind of fade away. And sure enough, for at least a week and a half, she'd poke around. She
probably
she'd
could
sit
smell things, smell the bed, smell the pillows.
One time she sat by one of our closets and meow, made these little noises, and then that kind of stopped.
So I miss them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think dogs. Somebody had said this. Well, animals in general, they think there's far more to them than we understand.
I fully believe that.
They talk about elephants. They talk about different. There was a thing with orangutans that they were talking about how much they can absorb and far more than we know, I guess.
Yep.
So that was a good one. So before we take our break, Mr. Nash, I know you have some news you want to talk about with Criterion Month coming up. So you want to share
our
that with
friends
the
at Deep Discount have been working with Criterion, and Sarah over at Criterion sent me a big box of Blu-rays and some DVDs of a lot of new and popular Criterion titles. And September is Criterion Month here on the Focus Group, and we like to play a game called Pick That Flick. We play an audio clue during the show. If you know it, you'll send us the name of the movie and your mailing address to letters@focusgroupradio.com. And if you're one of the first, I have a lot of movies. So, since we time shift, even if you hear it like a week or two later, and you think you know it in, send it in, because like I keep a spreadsheet of who's come in, how many discs I have, and everybody gets something. So keep your eyes peeled for Criterion month in September.
Cool. So it's one of our favorite promotions we do. So and John goes through, combing through. So these will be new clips, huh, John? Are you using any?
All new. Yeah.
Oh, so this will be good too, because
there's only one clue I would ever offer, and that is that I confined my choices.
Did you theme it?
Of movies to the Criterion Collection.
Okay. All right.
It's pretty broad.
So stay tuned. So that'll be next month, and the month of September, every week we'll be doing giveaways from Criterion, and you'll also, if you listen to our podcast, you'll find it over there as well. TFG Unbuttoned will also be doing giveaways with Criterion there as well. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have Shop Talk, and we also have our business birthday, so stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the website that you need to go to find out all about us and our partners, including Tuesday's TFG Unbuttoned podcast. And of course, if you're listening via audio, always subscribe, like, and rate at your platform of choice. Tends to be Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or the big guys on the street. But you can hear us on Pandora and Stitcher and a whole bunch of other places too. So without further ado, our show is best known possibly for this next segment, which is the only one in the universe that exists.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So, John, on TFG Unbuttoned this week, you had picked an article that we had both seen about the lottery.
Yes.
And about someone who hadn't claimed their prize. But if you were born to this family, the William Orville DeWitt Jr. family, Bill DeWitt Jr. was born August 31st, 1941. It almost would be like winning the lottery, I think, when you look at what they control and what they do. It's his 81st birthday today, August 31st, an American businessman who's currently the managing partner and chairman of the St. Louis Cardinals, which everyone knows is a professional baseball franchise, but also is involved in many other things. Owns 63 Arby's franchises, is a large investor of the U.S. playing card company. So the playing cards you have is worth about $120 million. Bought the George H.W. Bush Petroleum Company, Spectrum 7. Also has ownership in a number of other athletic teams. And it's a family business. His dad, he was born in Missouri, but his dad was involved with Major League Sports, and so that's how he got involved at an early age. He had gone to college at Yale and then Harvard, and then he had come back and joined an investment firm in Cincinnati, and then started his own investment firm with a friend of his in 1979, and that's when they purchased the 63 Arby's franchises, which they're estimated to be worth about $50.4 million. Do you ever go to an Arby's?
It's been a long time, and that really has to do with where a franchise is located, right?
Right. Yeah, they're hard to find.
Yeah.
Our rowing coach, when he was on his deathbed, wanted a vanilla milkshake from
Arby's.
And Brian and I went to Jersey and we found one, and we brought it to him. The nurse yelled at us. He died 2 days later. It was like, his sister's like, he wants a milkshake. So we went and got him the Arby's vanilla milkshake. I often wondered it because I remember that when this popped up, I thought, I never tried an Arby's vanilla milkshake. I wonder if it's any good. I love a shake. Who knows? And then as I said, they also, this firm that he had, Reynolds DeWitt and Company, had also invested in the U.S. playing card company, which, you don't think of something like playing cards, a deck of cards, but the value of that's about $120 million. He also has a $40 million stake in the Newport Aquarium in Kentucky. He's also involved with a private equity firm. He's also part owner of the Cincinnati Reds as well as the Baltimore Orioles. So he's juggling a lot of balls.
Indeed.
As I said, he bought George W. Bush's Arbusto Energy and merged that with another energy company. It's now called Spectrum 7. He also has shares in the National Football League Cincinnati Bengals, also the World Hockey Association. He's also part owner of the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati. And when he bought, in 1995, he purchased the St. Louis Cardinals from Anheuser-Busch for $150 million. Do you want to take a guess of what it is worth today?
You said he bought it for
1995, he bought it for $150 million. He bought the franchise. And so Forbes had done an estimation of what it's worth today.
St. Louis Cardinals.
They won two.
If I said
World Series.
1.2 billion.
You're not far off. You probably thought higher than I did. 2.1 billion.
Wow.
And they estimate that they kick off about $270 million a year in revenue. So making them one of the largest privately held firms in St. Louis. You don't think of it sometimes as a business. It's a big business, right? It's professional sports.
Huge, yeah.
So, but he has, with his money, he has started a number of nonprofit organizations around baseball and sports for youth programs. Gives about $1 million a year throughout various cities with underprivileged kids, building baseball fields, making sure they have proper equipment, and for rural and urban areas alike. And also is involved with some minor league teams, open baseball academies in Dominican Republic and 6 other foreign countries to try to bring players into the fold, into baseball. They did, however, get in trouble in 2015. They were caught hacking into the Houston Astros. They were fined $2 million and had to give up 2 top picks. So they said it was the first known case of corporate espionage involving computer networks and hacking into professional sports. So they were guilty of that. He was a supporter of George Bush. He was put on the President's Intelligence Advisory Committee. His wife served on the National Endowment for the Arts. They have 4 children. The children are involved in the business. His one son, Andrew, founded Dewey's Pizza. I never heard of Dewey's Pizza. So happy 81st birthday to Bill DeWitt. So you
Pretty
know, John,
amazing,
if you were
huh?
in that family, you'd be like winning the lottery.
Well, yeah, you
Throwing
wouldn't
these
even buy a
millions
ticket.
Right?
Yeah, the thought of playing the lottery wouldn't occur to you if you lived in this family, right?
I guess not. What do you want?
Because you're like, look what I'm going to get. Look what I'm going to get.
Yeah, I often I sometimes look at some of these families and you just see what the accumulated wealth, and it just keeps accumulating. There were a number of car dealers that I used to work with in my former life that, their kids would inherit these empires of hundreds of millions of dollars of
dealerships, right?
Car dealerships. And you're just thinking, I asked somebody once, I said, do they have any worries? And one woman looked at me and goes, well, I have 4 cats. It's like, that was her worry. I was like, do you ever have any worries, financially, right? So I got 4 cats to worry about. Okay.
One of the empires you're thinking of probably was the Eddie Bach Jr. Was it?
Ernie Bach, yeah.
Ernie Bach Jr.
Up in,
Like that was a
New
huge
England.
thing up there, right?
Yeah, worth over $1 billion, private jets, homes in Martha's Vineyard, and music involvement and everything. Yeah, no, but self-made man. His dad started a little gas station with a Nash Rambler dealership, and grew it into this. Happened to invest in this little unknown Japanese company, and bought the rights to Subaru for $50,000 for New England, and still owns it. That's worth, probably well over close to $1 billion or more. Good investment.
Right place, right time, right decision, right?
Did your family drive Nash cars? I can't believe
We
I
never did.
asked you
No, we were a Chrysler, and one of the most hated cars we had was the Dodge Aspen.
that. Oh, really?
God, that thing had a carburetor that was a problem from the get-go. I remember every vacation was a garage visit, and every mechanic had a theory about what was wrong with the car. It was a lemon.
What color was it? Like gold or orange?
Beige, beigey gold.
I was going to say the Aspens were always that color.
That was exactly right. Yeah.
Then your mom got the one with the pop-up lights.
Dodge 024 with the spoiler on the back. She was pushing those 4 cylinders as hard as they can go. The farthest thing from a sports car in the world, a 4-cylinder automatic with a spoiler on the back, right? The hatchback.
I used to love the lights, though. I used to love those cars that had the lights that pop.
Yeah. I
Ford
just
was big on
remember,
that,
like,
too.
we could never use her car, and if we did, we had to really. I don't know how that worked. I rarely drove that car, man. That was her. That was her vehicle of escape. I can get to see this. I can go here. I can do this. Thank you for that little memory lane thing. Let's move along to Shop Talk. Just to remind listeners, Tim and I went to high school together, and we know a lot about each other. And he was at my house a lot. So, okay. Tim found a good article that we're going to talk about as the first one of Shop Talk, and it's actually about Arizona iced tea and how it got its name. And little did I know that it began as a brand in Brooklyn. So you when you hear something like that, you always laugh. So the founder, Don Voltaggio, Vultaggio, Don Voltaggio, was considering names for his new iced tea business 30 years ago, and he wanted something that connoted a warm and healthy environment. That meant getting far away from Brooklyn, where he grew up, but not too far away. His friends called his New York home the Santa Fe House because of its adobe-style design filled with pink, yellow, and turquoise colors. So he settled on Santa Fe for the name of the drink. It didn't stick. When he saw it on packaging or packaging design, he just felt that it looked like a train. And there used to be a Santa Fe Railroad, so he was not far off on that. So he did more naming work, and he associated Arizona with healthy, clean, and dry living, and far away from Brooklyn. So he decided to name it Arizona Iced Tea, and the name stuck. And here we are, years later, right, with Arizona Iced Tea. So this was a fascinating one because a lot of little things percolated up in the article, namely that they try to hold the price point of some of their popular size iced teas at 99 cents, whatever, even though in adjusted dollars it would still be like 2 something. Is that still true, though, Tim?
I think so. I always remembered seeing, they were smart by doing the different can size and then the value of the 99 cents. Because they said that they used to sell malt liquor. He came from a background with malt liquor, and so they had the tall boys, the big cans. And that did stick out because I was going to ask you, I don't ever remember seeing Arizona tea commercials or advertising. Do you?
Rarely. Saw Snapple ads all the time.
Right.
But
And that's
rarely
what he was
saw
going
Arizona
after, right?
ads.
That's what he says. They wanted to go after Snapple when they developed this tea. And their point of differentiation was they had these tall boy cans, so they would stick out because their cans were different. And then the design on the can certainly was different. And then they stylized the Z. I don't think that was, as revolutionary as the article makes it sound. But I would say that it appears that, they did use packaging and a value story. And
Perfectly said. Well said. Packaging and a value story. Well said.
But I thought about this, and I thought, is this similar to, because if someone owns a huge market share of something, and I was thinking about this, if you and I said, oh, we're going to do, we're going to go a business and we're going to go after X, Y, or Z. And I thought, is this similar to if someone says, so he knows Snapple's doing well, he's always hearing the Snapple commercials, the Snapple lady, and says, I'm going to make an iced tea. And how you differentiate. And I thought, is this similar to either Burger King or some of these other, Wendy's that went after McDonald's? Do they say, I want to go after McDonald's and I'm going to make something different? And what's my point of differentiation? I didn't know if that's a fair comparison.
Assessment?
Comparison? I don't know.
Well, on the Wendy's front, well, actually, maybe not Wendy's, but if you looked at like McDonald's versus like White Castle,
right,
you could easily say that the product differentiation was a square patty and a round patty,
right, in size,
and that
right.
and that the bun, like the White Castle burgers, are smaller. You could, they're
they were
just
steamed
square
too,
shaped.
weren't they?
Yeah.
Steamed? Yeah.
That's right. And if you looked at McDonald's and Burger King, their point of differentiation was that they charbroiled the burgers as opposed to put them
Right in
they
the
went
grill,
to a convert.
right.
So what was the Wendy's thing? It was just
Well, Wendy's was supposed to be the gourmet, right? It was more like
Better beef.
homemade. Yeah, so they weren't pre-made patties, although they were, but it made it feel like they were homemade sort of thing and luxury. I guess the insides were nicer. They had carpeting on the floor. They had better furniture inside.
So the Arizona thing is intriguing because if you went into any deli, their cans stuck out not only because of the size, but because of the graphics on it. And one part of the article that was interesting to me, because I've only ever seen some of this, is that it's grown into a larger empire that includes snacks, candy, coffee, and alcohol. But one of its most popular drinks, one of my favorites, is the Arnold Palmer, half lemonade, half iced tea. And I just remember the cans that Arizona did around that. You know, like they were very eye-catching, and it really sunk home the fact that that was the drink that Arnold Palmer invented.
And I think they used his image on it too, didn't they?
They did. Tim, you're
so
absolutely right.
They must have got permission for that.
They did have
Obviously.
his image on it for a long time. So I think this is a funny story. Interesting that it could have been Santa Fe iced tea. I think that would have been a name that...
Or it could have been Nevada, right? Texas. I'm trying to think what's around Arizona.
New Mexico. It could have been, right?
New Mexico, Nevada. Maybe Nevada tea. Maybe you and I will do Nevada tea and we'll do a big V. So it'd be N-E.
The V, yeah.
Yeah, Nevada. Or is it Nevada? I don't know if I ever say it right.
N-E-V.
V, big V.
A-D-A.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Just like the Arizona, like the A-I-R-Z.
Arizona. Is it Nevada or Nevada? I always get it wrong.
I always say, I used to say Nevada, but now I hear people say Nevada. So,
I guess if you were doing Spain, Nevada. Do you drink Arizona tea or do you buy tea?
I love it. Yeah, we love it. I haven't. I usually buy their diet variety.
Do they have a diet? Do they have the diet? Arnold
they have a
Palmer?
diet iced tea, but I don't see it all the time. So it's select places have it. You know, select delis and grocery stores. So it's not always a prevalent thing.
My mom had it when I was last up in Connecticut, and what shocked me most, she bought the huge. I guess it's like a gallon or something.
Yeah.
But I was shocked about how heavy and how plastic, like the plastic jug. I thought that thing had to cost a fortune to make. It just seems so wasteful.
Oh, she buys the gallon. Okay, I know what she buys.
Yeah, she bought the big
yeah.
one. And it was Arizona green tea. I remember.
Green
that's what
tea,
she had.
okay.
Yeah, she had the green tea. And but I just remember that it was thick plastic jug, and I thought, man. But they recycled.
There was last summer. Bob
still.
refused to buy iced tea, and he would make sun tea all the time. He would just put a
Bob
jar
turning
of
into
water
a
out with
lesbian?
tea.
Sounds like
Yeah, I was like, honey,
Pam and Nancy make sun tea out on the roof.
sun tea.
So
yeah.
where Bob was making sun tea where on the deck or something?
Yeah, he'd put a jar right out on the patio. It would get direct sunlight
tea
for a while,
bags.
and you'd take the bags out, and we'd have iced tea.
You'd have to have assembly line going though, because you drink it fast.
I'm more of a water guy.
Yeah.
If it's there, I'll drink it. But I'm so easy. Just give me water. Not even ice cubes. I'm good with water.
Hey, I want to check in. Did you? I asked you this, but I didn't check in. Did you have tomatoes this year?
Yes, we have a lot of great tomatoes that are coming in now, and they
Good.
taste
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah,
Bob
they're
also grew a lot of these little cherry tomatoes, little size ones.
Yep.
And they have flavor like you won't believe. I mean,
throw those on my eggs. I cut those in half and cook them with my eggs in the morning.
just I eat them by themselves. Like we gave some to Bob's mom. She started having them like they were popcorn or something.
Cook them with your
And-
eggs. Do you ever cook them in your eggs?
Oh, they're fantastic. Yeah. And the other thing that amazes me about these grown tomatoes, how flavorful they are compared
Yes.
to what you get from a hothouse or something.
Yes.
I know they've tried to figure that out, but it has to be the soil. It's everything. It's the sun, the soil, the whole bit.
Yeah. Well, good.
All right, so our next shop talk is following in the footsteps of a trend that we've seen reported on, and basically it's this idea that, you know, people everywhere are quiet quitting. So the headline actually is a little longer, though. It says, "Quiet quitting, firing, even dumping. Americans are falling in love with passive aggression, and it's hurting our careers, relationships, and mental health." So I'll just open up by reading the first two paragraphs. Quiet quitting has taken the media world by storm. We've all been hearing about it. The trend, which was named by a Gen Z creator on TikTok, basically involves doing the bare minimum at your job while looking for a new one. It's led to backlash from experts, including Ariana Huffington, who told Fortune that such behavior can hurt your career. Before long, it emerged that bosses are getting in on the trend too, engaging in quiet firing. Rather than giving an employee honest feedback and steps to improve, bosses are quietly ignoring their requests for promotions or higher pay, hoping they'll be demoralized enough to leave on their own. And of course, the trend continues into the world of dating and relationships, even with married folk, where you just don't feel like saying something or doing something, so you ignore it until it goes away. Or we all know the term ghosting, Right? So you could get ghosted. So I just thought this was an interesting one to talk about for Shop Talk because I sometimes marvel at behaviors that they think are brand new. And I'll just say this. That paragraph that I just read about bosses not giving feedback and ignoring your requests and hoping that you're just going to move along and get a new job. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but hasn't this been around for decades?
Well, and doing the bare minimum while you're looking for a job. It's funny, if you could see my screen, I had typed in the corner, "How is this new?" And I
Yeah.
had it in red and highlighted. You know, you and I laugh about this. It was like business books. We all said there's been one business book written. It just has a different title over and over again.
What color is my
Um,
parachute? My parachute's red. My parachute's yellow. What color?
it's
Yeah.
the same story, right? It's the same thing everywhere. Just these stories are, just tend to be packaged differently. This one I thought, yeah, exactly what you said. This is nothing new, and it was funny as if they're trying to make it, oh, it's happened because of the pandemic, or
Yep.
the one piece I did find though that I do agree with, as they said, because of the pandemic and because we now have moved on to this world of Zoom and not so much face to face, that it's a lot easier to hide behind a screen to say something. And so this passive aggressive behavior, I do agree with that. It's easier to just type something or text something than to pick up the phone and call. We're used to this passive aggressiveness of, I'll have somebody text me, and I try to call them, they won't pick up. And I had done this assignment working when I were those two crazies, the husband and wife, and they would literally be in a meeting, and she'd be texting him in the meeting.
Yeah.
And this is how they communicated. And I thought, why not just wait till the meeting's over and talk or whatever? But he finally said to her one day, he goes, can we talk about this later? She would be texting. And so very, very odd behavior. But this passive aggressive thing of just texting, and I know you've talked about it a bunch, of why don't you just pick up the phone and have a conversation? People tend to just hide behind their screens and either shoot an email rather than wanting to have the conversation, right?
Well, that goes to this broader thing where my friend Ed called me the other day out of the blue, and he opened the conversation by simply saying, "Remember when you would just call somebody and they would take your call, and you didn't have to plan for it at 3 o'clock or 2:30 or whatever you were doing." I just think that the broader thing that I took away from this article is we are all missing growth opportunities by not confronting uncomfortable conversations or uncomfortable situations. No, we don't like it when we have to tell an employee that they have to step up and improve. And I'm sure we don't like being in a position where our boss doesn't take the time to actually acknowledge what we're doing or actually get what we're doing, and we feel like we're sidelined or something. And so you go into this mode of yeah, well, I think I'm just going to sit here and do half-assed work until I either find something or I get fired. But you're really not solving the problem. And it's the same in relationships. Nobody likes uncomfortable conversations. No, nobody wants them, but they do yield some good sometime.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. But you've always been very good about it, I think. But I don't know if it's the younger generation of people, and that's why this seemed to be new. When they mentioned a TikTok, somebody from TikTok had coined the phrase of the quiet quitting. But maybe it's a generational thing that they become so reliant on the technology of the phone and the text and the mobile devices that they view.
Yeah,
it
and it's, by the way,
differently.
this thing says Americans. This is not just America. I have friends who
No.
live in London, and I heard this hilarious story where this guy was trying to reach somebody. He finally gets him on the phone, and the guy says, "Do you have WhatsApp? Do you have WhatsApp?" He's like, "Yeah, I have WhatsApp." He goes, "Let's talk through there." And he didn't know what to do. He said, "But I'm talking to you now." He goes, "No, we're going to do it through WhatsApp. It's encrypted," or something like that. And they had to resort to the keyboard and the thumb thing instead of a normal conversation. I used to love talking on the phone. I mean, it just solved a lot of problems. A lot of good things happened on the phone. Sometimes by accident. Sometimes it was just utilitarian. But remember
it's
cold
also
calls?
quicker, right? It's also
Yeah, it was quicker.
If there was something that we needed to get done, if a phone call that's 10 minutes versus an hour and a half of back and forth
Yeah.
with answering texts or an email is far better. You and I used to get frustrated because when we had a couple of clients that would refuse to pick up the phone, same sort of thing. They'd hurry up, send something, and then you'd send it, rather than just let's get on the phone and talk through it, and then make sure everything's there that you need, rather than telling me at 4:00 in the afternoon after I sent it at 10:00 that I need a little more, or you didn't need to do that much. So yeah, the phone can be helpful.
Phone ruled the world. It was, and the fact, one of my favorite things about the phone used to be that it was attached to a wall with a cord, and when you walked away from it, you were away from the phone.
When I was an outside sales rep and I used to have the Midwest, I would be driving around Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and so forth, and we didn't have phones. It was before it was too expensive to have car phones.
Portable
Only the very
phone,
very
yeah.
senior people did. So you had to stop at payphones along the way if you found one. And if you found one that you could drive up to because it was so cold and you could just through the window was a big deal. But I remember.
Do you remember those?
Right,
They used to actually have them lower for the
so
window.
you could pull up with the car, and I would find one. I'd be so excited because then you didn't have to get out of the car. You keep the heat on and talk. But I remember saying to my boss, I said, it is so remote up here in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. I can't even get radio. I can get a little bit of NPR now and then, but I can't even have radio. So I was advocating to get a CD player in the car. He said, when I worked at Ford, he goes, then it was AM versus FM. He goes, we all wanted FM radios. He goes, now you kids all want CD players. He said, you need to just realize that windshield time is good for thinking. This is when you're driving. You just need to.
I agree. I actually agree.
He goes, that windshield therapy for the 9 hours from Minnesota to Marquette, Michigan that you're driving on those back roads, it's a good time to think. So that's it.
There you go.
So that was a good story,
Shop
Mr.
Talk.
Nash. Yes. As John reminded us in today's show, we've got Criterion Week coming up. Criterion Month coming up.
All month.
For the whole month of September here on the Focus Group as well as on TFG Unbuttoned. John has assembled a bunch of clips, and we have a whole box load of movies to give away. And on our Pick That Flick segments, which will happen each week in September. And as John says, because we all know you time shift, if you know the name of something and you're listening 2 or 3 weeks later, send it in anyway to letters@focusgroupradio.com, and John will take care of it. And if you won and we have some movies left over, you'll get a nice little package from us. So thanks to our friends at Criterion and Deep Discount for that. And thank you, John, for assembling. Good show as always. And we hope you all have a safe week as we're into our last official week of summer with the Labor Day holiday coming up, and people seem to then think fall and pumpkin spice lattes, I guess. So remember, don't text and drive, arrive alive. We'll see you in September. Take care.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.